What if I told you that just 4 minutes, yes, four, could unlock the reality you've been dreaming about for years? 4 minutes that don't require any tools, any rituals, or any special knowledge. Just you, your imagination, and a little bit of belief. It may sound impossible, but as you're about to discover, it's exactly what Neville Goddard taught his students, that the key to transformation lies not in time or effort, but in the precise alignment of thought and feeling. Neville Goddard was not a motivational speaker or a life coach. He wasn't interested in temporary hacks or superficial advice. He was a man who challenged the very fabric of how we understand reality. His radical claim that imagination creates reality, not metaphorically, but literally. Neville taught that your outer world is nothing but a mirror of your inner state. Change your inner assumptions, and the world has no choice but to conform. Now imagine, if this was true, and Neville believed it was absolutely true, what could you do in just 4 minutes of focused, intentional imagination? That's what this video is going to explore. We're going to break down, step by step, Neville Goddard's most powerful method to manifest anything you want in only 4 minutes a day. And if that sounds like an exaggeration, stay with me because I'll show you how some of the most profound transformations reported by Neville's students came from short, focused periods of mental rehearsal. These weren't drawn-out rituals or years of affirmation. They were moments of clarity backed by a deep feeling of certainty. You'll learn what Neville meant when he said, "Feeling is the secret." You'll discover the silent force behind your everyday assumptions, the ones quietly shaping your life, even when you're not paying attention. And more importantly, you'll learn how to take control of that force, how to consciously assume the reality you want to live in, and then watch it unfold in ways you could never plan with logic or effort. In this video, we're not just talking about theories. You're going to hear rare insights from Neville's original lectures, some of which are almost never mentioned in popular summaries. We'll revisit his words, not just to understand them intellectually, but to experience what he was pointing toward. These aren't vague ideas, they are precise tools. Tools that have helped thousands of people change their finances, relationships, health, and confidence, not by trying to control the outer world, but by mastering their inner state. And if you're wondering why haven't I heard about this 4-minute technique before, well, that's part of the mystery. Neville didn't present it as a gimmick or shortcut. He simply understood that time isn't the factor. Intensity of belief is. He shared stories of people who shifted their entire circumstances by lying still for just a few minutes, surrendering to the vivid living feeling that what they desired was already true. No begging, no forcing, just assumption, bold, calm, and certain. That's what you're going to learn in this video. You'll see exactly how to apply this method today. You'll get a clear breakdown of what to do, how to feel it, and what mental traps to avoid. We'll talk about how to enter the state akin to sleep, why imagination in that state is most potent, and how to craft a scene that convinces your subconscious that the desire has already happened. You'll also hear stories, real ones, of people who use this method in everyday life, people who needed rent money and received unexpected checks, people who longed for reconciliation with a loved one and found themselves receiving that exact message days later. These stories aren't coincidences. They are the bridge of incidents Neville spoke of, the chain of seemingly random events that link your assumption to its fulfillment. As you watch, pay close attention to the principles behind these methods. This isn't about wishing or hoping. It's not about controlling outcomes or manipulating others. It's about shifting your identity, your state of being, to the person who already has what they want. Once you live from that state, even for a few moments, something changes. Not in the world, in you. And when that inner shift is real, the world has no choice but to echo it back. The method you're about to learn is simple, but its simplicity hides its power. Don't mistake this for another feel-good technique. This is the core of Neville Goddard's work, the very same core he taught to packed rooms of students, urging them to test it for themselves. He never asked people to blindly believe. He asked them to apply it. And when they did, something always moved. So I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, because once you understand this method, not just with your mind, but with your experience, you'll never look at time, manifestation, or even your thoughts the same way again. You'll realize you were never waiting on the world to change. You were waiting on yourself to assume a new version of reality. This is the kind of knowledge that doesn't just shift a moment, it shifts a lifetime. And it starts with a few minutes of conscious imagination. Simple, silent, powerful. Welcome to Ignis Mindset, where we bring the timeless teachings of Neville Goddard into your life, your growth, and your present moment. If this message resonates with you, and you're ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and assumptions, hit that subscribe button, join the community, and let's dive into the method that has already transformed so many lives, including yours, if you're ready. Before we talk about the actual technique that can help you manifest anything in just 4 minutes, we must first understand the foundation on which this entire process rests. Neville Goddard's core philosophy. Without this foundation, the method becomes hollow, a routine without substance. But with it, even the simplest mental act becomes a seed planted in the soil of reality. Neville's teachings revolve around one central truth. Imagination is not a passive daydream or idle escape. It is the creative force of life itself. He taught that your imagination is the only true reality. Everything you experience in the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner world. He often said, man is all imagination. God is man and exists in us, and we in him. To Neville, imagination was not separate from the divine. It was the divine action itself, operating through you. The scenes you imagine, the people you picture, the experiences you construct in your mind, they are not fiction, they are the blueprint. The outer world simply responds to the tone and texture of your inner world. Now, this might sound abstract, but Neville was always clear that imagination is not vague or fleeting. He urged his students to treat imagination as fact. If you vividly and persistently imagine a scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire, and you do so with belief and emotional certainty, then that scene must solidify into the fabric of your life. Imagination doesn't hope, it doesn't beg, it creates. Connected to this principle is one of Neville's most emphasized insights. Feeling is the secret. He meant this quite literally. The subconscious mind is not swayed by logic, words, or external action. It is deeply moved by feeling. When you imagine a desired state, it is not enough to merely see it. You must feel it. You must emotionally occupy it. When the emotion of your imagined scene is felt as real, the subconscious mind accepts it as truth. And once accepted, it begins to manifest that truth through channels you cannot foresee. Neville made a sharp distinction between surface-level wishing and the deeper act of assumption. Wishing keeps your desire distant, outside yourself, but assumption brings it into the present. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you shift your identity. And once your identity changes, your world has no choice but to rearrange itself in accordance with that new self-concept. This is the essence of the law of assumption. It's not just about positive thinking or visualizing success. It's about becoming inwardly one with the thing you seek. If you want wealth, you must assume the state of someone who already is wealthy. If you desire love, you must feel loved before anyone appears. If you seek healing, you must identify as whole, even when your outer body appears otherwise. The outer world is not the cause. It is the effect. The cause lies within. Always. Neville described the law of assumption as a psychological law. The subconscious mind does not question it, accepts the assumptions you feed it, as long as they are deeply felt. Once it accepts a new idea as real, it sets into motion all the necessary conditions to bring it into the external world. You don't need to figure out how. That's not your job. Your job is to accept the end result as already done and live from that state mentally and emotionally. This is why Neville often spoke about living in the end. It's not enough to think about the thing you want. You must think from it. This shift from thinking of to thinking from is the line between delay and manifestation. To think of something keeps it outside of you, distant, separate. But to think from it means you already are the person who has it. And once you assume that position, everything else begins to move in alignment with that assumption. One of Neville's lesser-known teachings was that every state already exists. You are not creating a new reality out of thin air. You are simply moving into an existing version of yourself that already possesses what you desire. Think of life as a vast mansion with infinite rooms. Each room is a state, a version of yourself. When you change your inner assumptions, you are walking from one room to another. The house remains the same. The rooms are all there. Your imagination is the key that unlocks the door to the room you wish to occupy. So when Neville taught about the power of imagination, he wasn't urging you to fantasize randomly. He was giving you the key to shift your state deliberately. And once you shift that state and feel it as real, the law of assumption ensures that your new state becomes your new experience. It cannot be otherwise. The world cannot resist your assumption. It must reflect it. This understanding changes how you approach manifestation. You stop chasing results in the outer world. You stop trying to force events into place. You no longer look for signs or beg for confirmation. Instead, you go inward. You become still. You enter the state akin to sleep, a state between wakefulness and slumber. And in that fertile inner silence, you construct a scene that implies your desire has already been fulfilled. You see it, yes, but more importantly, you feel it. You breathe in that new reality until it becomes natural. And then you let it go, trusting that what has been impressed on the subconscious will be expressed in your world. Neville was never impressed by appearances. He taught that appearances are shadows, reflections of a past state. If you want to change the shadow, don't attack it. Don't complain about it. Don't try to fix it. Go to the source. Change your inner assumption, and the shadow must follow. It's worth noting that Neville didn't develop this philosophy overnight. He lived it. He tested it. He once shared the story of how he traveled from New York to Barbados without any money, simply by assuming the feeling of being in Barbados, of seeing his family, of hearing their voices. He imagined it nightly until it felt real. And then, through a series of unexpected events, he found himself aboard a ship returning home. He didn't force it. He didn't plan it. He assumed the end and trusted the Lord. This is what separates Neville's teachings from much of what is called manifestation today. It's not about manipulation or external control. It's not about effort. It's about stillness, certainty, and inner alignment. The law of assumption works not because you wish hard enough, but because you are it. You become the state, and the state must express itself. So, before we get into the practical method that condenses this entire philosophy into just 4 minutes a day, remember this: the real power lies not in the technique, but in the understanding behind it. Imagination is the engine. Feeling is the fuel. Assumption is the path. When these three come together, manifestation becomes inevitable, not because the world changes, but because you do. Let's enter into the most practical and transformational part of this teaching, the actual method that can alter the course of your life in just 4 minutes a day. Neville Goddard never taught manifestation as a lengthy process. He believed that the human imagination, when used correctly, didn't require hours of effort. What it needed was sincerity, clarity, and feeling. It's not about time. It's about the depth of consciousness in those minutes you dedicate to your inner world. Step 1 begins with clarity of desire. This is not the time for vague longings or general hopes. You must be exact about what you truly want, not what others think you should want, not what seems reasonable or probable, but what you deeply desire. Neville always said that desire is a gift. If you feel a longing within you, it is not random. It is a a sign of what already exists for you in potential form. But that desire must be clarified. What is it you want to experience? Is it financial freedom, a loving relationship, a peaceful home, better health? Name it, define it, not in a paragraph, but in a sentence. I am now financially secure. I am now joyfully married. I am now completely healthy. Simplicity gives power to the imagination. Clarity makes the image potent. Once your desire is clearly defined, move into step 2. Entering a relaxed state. Neville referred to this as the state akin to sleep. It is a state where the conscious mind begins to quiet and the subconscious becomes impressible. This is not full sleep, but the edge of it, a twilight zone of awareness. You can reach this state by lying quietly on your bed or sitting still in a quiet place. Breathe deeply. Let go of tension in your body. Slow your thoughts. Detach from the outer world. This state doesn't require effort. It requires stillness. The more passive your physical body, the more active your inner senses become. This is the doorway into the third step, visualizing the desired outcome. Neville taught that visualization must not be long or complex. A short, vivid scene is more effective than an elaborate story. Choose a scene that implies your desire has already been fulfilled. For example, if your desire is to receive a job offer, your scene might be shaking hands with someone and hearing them say, "Congratulations, you got the job." If you want a loving relationship, you might imagine holding your partner's hand while hearing them say, "I love you." The scene should be short, simple, and repeatable, something you can relive again and again without confusion. But the scene alone is not enough. The next step is to embody the feeling. This is where manifestation truly begins. As you play your imagined scene, allow the emotions of that experience to rise within you. Feel the joy, feel the gratitude, feel the confidence, the security, the love, whatever emotion would naturally accompany the fulfillment of your desire. Neville insisted that it is the feeling that creates the reality, not just the image. The feeling is what imprints the subconscious. If you visualize a scene without emotion, it remains hollow. But if you feel it as real, the subconscious receives it as truth. Neville often said, "You must feel the thrill of accomplishment." It is not enough to say the words or see the image. You must inwardly know it is yours. The joy of receiving it, the peace of having it, these are the energies that form the mold of your future. Even if your current circumstances scream otherwise, you return again and again to that inner scene and feeling. You persist in that assumption. And now, the final step. Repeat this process daily. 4 minutes. That's all it takes. But it must be consistent. Neville emphasized the power of regularity. Just as water shapes stone over time, so does your daily inner work reshape the outer world. You don't need to do this for hours. You don't need to force anything. 4 minutes of concentrated, feeling-filled imagination in a relaxed state has more power than an hour of anxious affirmations or desperate mental effort. You can do this at night, just before sleep, when the body naturally moves into that quiet, receptive condition. Or you can do it in the early morning when your mind is still free from the noise of the day. The time isn't as important as the state and sincerity with which you engage your imagination. Do it when you can surrender most easily into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Each day, return to your inner sanctuary. Revisit that short scene. Relive that emotion. Let it soak into your being. It's not a mechanical exercise. It's communion with your future self. The more real it feels, the faster it will take root. Neville never taught that you needed to make things happen. He said you only needed to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the rest would follow. Don't underestimate the power of this simple method. 4 minutes of true alignment, mentally and emotionally, can do more to change your life than months of outer struggle. When you consistently step into the reality of your desire, you are planting seeds into the subconscious, and the subconscious, once impressed, must express. In this practice, there is no need to beg. You are not pleading with some force, outside of yourself. You are claiming what is already yours, what already exists as a possibility. You are moving into the state of having. You are shifting your identity to match your desire. And once that shift is made, manifestation is not a question of if, only when. So do it each day with belief, with patience, with joy. Let your imagination become your workshop. Let your emotions sculpt your world. And let 4 minutes become the most powerful part of your day. There was once a woman who, struggling financially, found herself doubting whether anything in her life could ever change. She came across Neville Goddard's teachings and decided to try the method just 4 minutes a night. She didn't do it perfectly at first, but she persisted. Her desire was simple: stability and dignity through meaningful employment. Each night she imagined herself coming home from work, dropping her keys on the table, and feeling deeply satisfied. She heard her own inner voice say, "Another great day at work." That was all. No complex script, just the scene and the feeling. After a few weeks, something unexpected happened. A friend she hadn't spoken to in years called to ask if she was looking for a job. A position had just opened, and they thought of her. That was her bridge of incidents. She hadn't planned it. She hadn't forced it, but her inner world prepared the outer circumstances. The subconscious, impressed by her feeling of being fulfilled, orchestrated the path. Another man, feeling stuck in a loveless relationship, wanted peace and companionship. Every night he imagined sitting on a bench at sunset, hand in hand, with someone he loved. He didn't imagine a face. He imagined a feeling: comfort, laughter, calm. He practiced this in sats, 4 minutes each evening before sleep. Within 2 months, someone entered his life unexpectedly. It wasn't who he originally thought he wanted, but the relationship that blossomed matched the feeling he had rehearsed so deeply in his imagination. That's what Neville meant when he said, feeling is the secret. Not just the desire itself, but the state of the desire being already real. In many of these real-life applications, a few patterns begin to emerge. First is emotional clarity. Those who succeed with this method often say they reached a point where they no longer begged for the outcome. They felt it. It became natural to them. They weren't chasing. They were assuming. That clarity brought their inner vision into harmony with their outer experience. Second is consistency. These individuals didn't visualize for one night and abandon the practice. They returned to it daily. The repetition wasn't stressful. It became a joy, a quiet time to return to the state of being they preferred. That repeated assumption eventually molded the subconscious into a new identity. And when identity changes, outcomes follow. Third, they all shared a subtle art: letting go. They didn't obsess over when it would come or how. After their nightly 4 minutes, they released it. They carried on with life, knowing it was already done in their imagination. Neville taught this beautifully. Your assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. But it can only harden into fact when the person allows the process to unfold. That's what it means to let go. Not giving up, but releasing the tension around the outcome. And in each story, there was a bridge of incidents. These were not always dramatic. Sometimes they were ordinary: a delayed train leading to a chance encounter, a last-minute invitation that opened a new door. The mind cannot always trace how the end is achieved. The job is not to predict or control the sequence. The job is to stay faithful to the inner scene and the emotion it brings. To practice effectively, start with consistency. The subconscious doesn't respond to occasional attention. It responds to repeated impressions. Each night, even when tired or distracted, take those 4 minutes, enter that quiet state, see the scene, feel the result, return to it like one returns to prayer, with sincerity and repetition. Next is belief. Neville did not ask you to believe in magic or superstition. He asked you to believe in yourself, to believe that your inner world is causative, not reactive, that what you assume within, you will eventually see without. Doubt interrupts this current. Faith strengthens it, and belief is not always loud. It can be quiet confidence. In knowing deep inside that what you have imagined is already real in the unseen. And finally, learn the power of letting go. You are not trying to make it happen. You are assuming that it already is. Once your inner world is saturated with the feeling of fulfillment, live as though it's unfolding naturally. Do not search for signs. Do not weigh progress. These outer things are shadows. Focus on the inner cause. Trust the process. Neville once said, "To be conscious of being poor while praying for riches is to be rewarded with that which you are conscious of being poverty." This is why letting go is so powerful. It shifts you from wanting to being, from seeking to assuming. When you let go, you stop affirming lack. You stop feeding the state of not having, and you begin to live in the vibration of already having. There is no strain in this method. It is not a ritual. It is not about how much you do. It is about the depth of how you feel. A few minutes of concentrated feeling can alter months of scattered thought. One moment of true inner conviction can begin a series of outer events that rewrite your life story. People around the world, from all walks of life, have applied this. Some to manifest peace, others to heal relationships, some to bring opportunities or improve health. In every case, the method is the same: clarity, relaxation, visualization, emotion, repetition. There is no variation in the structure, only in the form that the desire takes. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to force belief. Begin where you are. Start with something simple if you must. Allow your mind to become a workshop of your future. Trust that what you do in imagination is real, because your subconscious responds to what you feel is true. And as you return, day after day, the process becomes easier. The feeling becomes more natural. The assumption becomes your identity, and the bridge of incidents begins to appear quietly, beautifully, and often in ways you could never have predicted. What you assume to be true in the depths of your being becomes the fabric of your world. It is not philosophy. It is law. There's a tendency in the human mind to want immediate proof. When a person applies the method imagining the end, feeling it is done, they often expect results within the same hour, the same day. And when nothing seems to happen instantly, the impatience begins to set in. That impatience, however, is the very signal that the state of wish fulfilled hasn't been fully accepted. You only wait anxiously when you don't yet believe you have received. The moment you assume a thing is already yours, you no longer look to the clock or calendar. You don't monitor the outer world for evidence. You rest. You relax. You move about your day with a calm certainty. Neville taught that assumption, persisted in, becomes fact, not because of how long it takes, but because of how real it becomes to you inwardly. The process is not about speed, it's about saturation. When your inner world is fully saturated with the feeling of the fulfilled desire, time becomes irrelevant. Impatience reveals where you are placing your attention. It means you are still more focused on the absence than the presence of what you want. You're checking the bank account, rereading messages, analyzing signs, all of which keep your awareness grounded in the outer instead of rooted in the inner state. But manifestation is never about convincing the world. It's about convincing yourself. Your world will always reflect what you have impressed upon your subconscious. And the subconscious does not respond to begging or worry. It responds to faith. Faith is patience in motion. It is the ability to stay in the assumption of the desired state without needing proof. Another major stumbling block is doubt. Doubt is subtle. It doesn't always come as a loud voice. Often it comes as a whisper. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm doing it wrong? What if I'm just imagining nonsense? These questions might seem harmless, but they carry the emotional charge of contradiction. When you assume the end and then question it in your daily thoughts, you create a split within the self. One part of you says it is done, while the other keeps rehearsing it isn't here yet. Neville often reminded us that the subconscious accepts the dominant feeling, not the louder voice, not the more poetic affirmation, but the feeling that has been most deeply repeated. So when doubt is allowed to persist, it becomes the seed that grows. The outer world then reflects not the desire, but the fear that the desire won't happen. To overcome doubt, one must not fight it directly. Rather, one must return to the scene of the end, again and again, until it becomes the natural state. Make it so familiar that the idea of not having it becomes absurd. There is no special technique to eliminate doubt. The answer is always assumption. The mind cannot hold two contradictory beliefs forever. One must become dominant, and the dominant one will shape your reality. So practice until the assumed state becomes automatic. When you assume with conviction, doubt falls away, not through effort, but through replacement. Consistency is the third challenge that many face. The method is simple: 4 minutes a day. Yet, people skip it. They forget, they do it for a week and then stop. They allow life's distractions to take over. But the subconscious does not respond to occasional commands. It is molded by repeated impressions. Consistency isn't just a matter of routine, it's a demonstration of belief. When you return to the practice daily, no matter how you feel, you are declaring, I believe this matters. I believe this works. Skipping days breaks the flow. It interrupts the emotional imprint. Just as a seed must be watered daily, your imagined state must be fed regularly, not with anxiety or force, but with feeling. 4 minutes a day, entered with sincerity, will accomplish more than hours of passive wishing. It's not about how long you practice. It's about how real it feels when you do. Consistency is what moves the imagined state from a mental concept to an emotional conviction. There are those who say, I don't see any change, so maybe I'll stop. But that's the trap. You're not supposed to look for change. You're supposed to live in the assumption of change. Neville said, live as though it were true. That's the challenge. Not to get results, but to remain in the feeling that results are inevitable. And that feeling cannot grow without consistent nourishment. Some imagine one night, then go a week without touching the scene again. Others try to visualize but treat it as a test. Let me try this once and see if something happens. But the subconscious is not an experiment lab. It is a mirror. If you feed it doubt, it reflects doubt. If you feed it faith, it reflects faith. The choice is always yours. Make the process your quiet ritual, not a burden, but a moment of peace. Let the 4 minutes become something you look forward to, a retreat from the noise of the day, a time to step into the reality you've chosen. With each repetition, the scene becomes more vivid, the feelings become more natural. And when something becomes natural, it becomes real. That's the law. There are other subtle pitfalls too. Comparing your results to others, wondering why someone manifested faster, but that comparison is a distraction. Your inner world is your responsibility alone. Your process is unique to your assumptions, your beliefs, your readiness. When you compare, you drift from your state. Stay loyal to your own inner vision. Some people overthink the scene. They want the perfect script, the right words, the ideal detail. But the subconscious doesn't need elaborate cinema. It needs sincerity. A short scene, done with true feeling, carries more power than 10 minutes of forced imagination. If your imagined scene makes you feel the wish is fulfilled, it is enough. Don't overcomplicate the practice. Let it be simple, quiet, and emotionally charged. Another pitfall is turning the practice into obligation. When you visualize just to check a box, the feeling disappears. And when the feeling disappears, the effectiveness fades. So if ever the practice becomes mechanical, pause, reconnect with the reason. Why did you begin? What do you truly desire? Return to that core emotion, and the fire will reignite. This isn't work, it's creation. You are forming your world from within. And so the way forward is clear. Keep it simple. Be consistent. Return to the feeling. Trust the process. Avoid monitoring the outer too much. It will come. It always does when the inner state is fully impressed. That is law. Not chance, not magic, but inner causation. The inner must come first. When the inner changes, the outer reflects. That's the order. And anything that interrupts that order, impatience, doubt, inconsistency, can be corrected. Always by returning to the feeling, always by assuming again. This is not wishful thinking. It's deliberate creation. You don't wait for things to happen, you cause them to. And it all begins in the unseen. You are not becoming something. You are remembering what you already are. Every desire you hold is not outside of you, waiting to be earned. It is within you now, waiting to be accepted. The moment you feel yourself to be what you seek, the outer world begins to conform. That is not poetry, it is law. It is the eternal principle. Neville Goddard devoted his life to sharing, you already are what you long to possess. Do not let simplicity fool you. The most powerful truths are always the simplest. The 4-minute method may appear small, even trivial to the logical mind. But in the world of consciousness, it is everything. It's a doorway, a key, a blueprint. For those 4 minutes, you rise above limitation. You enter a state where the impossible becomes normal, and the future is lived as the present. In those minutes, you plant seeds into the fertile soil of your subconscious. And as long as you water them with faith, they grow, often in ways you could never predict. Neville never asked us to believe in theory. He asked us to test it, to try it for ourselves. Because once you do, and you see the evidence of your own consciousness taking shape in the world, you cannot unsee it. Life no longer feels random. You recognize the connection between thought and form, between assumption and experience. You begin to move through life not as a victim of circumstances, but as a quiet creator. If you've ever wondered whether you're doing it right or whether this works, understand this. It is not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not about having the perfect image or feeling. It's about showing up every day, even for 4 minutes, and stepping into the reality of your choice. No begging, no hoping. Just being, feeling, accepting. And when doubt returns, and it will, you return too. Not to anxiety or frustration, but to the state of fulfillment. This is your real home, the state where you are already what you wish to be. From that place, the world shifts. Things rearrange, opportunities arise, people come forward, circumstances soften. What seemed difficult becomes easy. What seemed far becomes near. You no longer chase. You attract, not by force, but by alignment. You were never asked to do more than assume, and assumption, when done with conviction, moves mountains. Neville said it best, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and live and act upon this conviction. That's all. Not for hours, not with rituals, just long enough to feel it real. 4 minutes of full immersion is more valuable than an entire day of mental wandering. 4 minutes of silence, vision, and belief can outperform years of struggle. So take this with you, no matter what your current situation looks like, no matter how long you've waited, or how many times you've doubted. Today can be the day you return to your power. The power is not in some distant event or person. It is within your consciousness. And all it asks is that you dare to believe, just for a moment, that you are already in possession of the life you desire. That is the secret. Not waiting, not asking, being. There are people who have used this method to transform every area of their lives, not because they were lucky or gifted, but because they practiced, they persisted. They kept choosing the vision over the visible. They kept returning to the feeling even when nothing had changed outside. And slowly, then suddenly, everything changed. That can be your story too. Let this be your reminder. You don't need permission to live the life you imagine. You don't need approval. You don't need to wait. All you need is to believe that it is already so. The feeling of fulfillment is not something you earn. It is something you accept, and once you do, reality bends to match it. If this message has reached you at a time when you felt lost, stuck, or tired of trying, take a breath. Inhale deeply. Let go of the weight of doubt. Close your eyes even for a few seconds and imagine the end. See it, feel it, embrace it as real. You don't need anyone to agree with you. Your agreement with yourself is enough. That is where creation begins. Let this method become your quiet revolution. Each day, for just 4 minutes, turn away from the noise of the world. Enter the sacred space of your own imagination. Create there what you wish to see. Feel there what you wish to feel. And trust that life will meet you at the level of your assumption. Now, if something in you has stirred, if something deep within you knows that this is truth, don't let it pass. Anchor it. Act on it. Make this a practice, not a theory. Begin today, not with effort, but with intention. Not with pressure, but with peace. And if you found value in these teachings, if Neville's words have helped you understand the nature of your power, then take a moment to share that awakening. Drop a comment below and tell us what was your biggest insight from this video. What clicked? What did you remember about yourself today? Let us build a community around these principles, a space where consciousness is honored, where doubt is dissolved, where we lift each other by lifting our assumptions. Subscribe to Ignis Mindset if you haven't already. This channel exists to keep the fire alive, the fire of awareness, belief, and inner transformation. Every video is crafted to remind you of who you truly are and what you're truly capable. And if you know someone, just one person who could benefit from this message, send this video to them. You might be the bridge to their transformation. This is not just another video. This is a tool, a moment of clarity, a turning point. The power is already in your hands. It always has been. Use it, honor it, and watch what unfolds. From the deepest part of our being, we thank you for being here with us today. You are not alone in this journey. Every time you close your eyes and imagine the better, fuller, freer version of your life, you are aligning with the truth that cannot fail. Welcome to Ignis Mindset. Welcome home.